We need to ask it to stop. We need to give the fire its own territory so it can burn your house completely. How foolish would that be? My friends, it's about time. It's about time we've seen through these foolish tactics to deal with the Russian terrorist regime and the likes of them, with the Ayatollahs, with the North Korean regime, and with anyone else who would support their filthy causes. And that, my friends, is why we stand here. That is the message we have to give you and to give everyone in this world. The message of the Ukrainian people, but not only of the Ukrainian people, the message of a people who are striving for a better future for all of humanity. And that future, my friends, is being categorically denied by regimes like Russia, Ayatollah Iran, North Korea, etc. So what do we have to do about it? Do we simply agree to disagree when they are meddling in our politics, when they are invading our countries? But no, we can't be doing anything to them because then we're all the same, right? We need to be morally superior. No, my friends, it's time to stop this self-destructive mentality. And it's time to go for a more practical mentality. If your enemies come to you to destroy you, you destroy your enemies instead. And now is the best opportunity of doing so. To destroy the enemy in Russia with the hands of the Ukrainians and with the weapons of the free world. That is what needs to happen. That is the best case scenario. Thank you very much, my friend. It has always been the scenario, except sometimes some people simply choose not to see it. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
And now, my friends, we'll have a short musical break.
Вітаю!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Glory to Ukraine!
Glory! Glory!
Glory to Ukraine!
Glory to heroes!
Glory to Ukraine!
Glory to heroes!
Нашим захисникам тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам нашим тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
My friends, thank you for coming here today on this Sunday afternoon. Thank you for making the time. I know you are tired after a week's work and you probably want to be at home putting your feet up. But no, you still make the time and you still make the effort to come. And for this, all Ukraine is grateful. You can be proud that even though you are unable to be on the physical front line, you are doing your bit. You are playing your part in our united fight against Russia. You come here to remind the British people that the war in Ukraine is not over. It is far from over. Ukraine may not have been in the news headlines today or yesterday. It may not have been on the BBC, on ITV or on Channel 4. But the genocidal war that Russia is waging against Ukraine is continuing. By coming here, you remind the British people that Russia invaded a peaceful neighboring country. That Russia is committing genocide in Ukraine. That Russia steals, Russia kills, Russia rapes, and Russia tortures in Ukraine. Russia is the aggressor and Ukraine is the victim. Stop the genocide in Ukraine!
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 Stop Russia! Stop the war!
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 More sanctions on Russia!
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 No trade with 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 Russia!
Russia is an imperialist state. It has always been that way. It has always been an imperialist state that tries to colonize other countries. Over the last century, its name has changed several times, from Tsarist Russia to Bolshevik Russia to the USSR and now to the Russian Federation. But although the name changes, like the slimy skin of a chameleon, the core interests of Russia do not change. They dream of one thing only: to become an empire again. Russia is an imperialist state.
Russia is an imperialist state!
Russia is an imperialist state.
Russia is an imperialist state!
Russia is an imperialist state.
Russia is an imperialist state!
A century ago, they invaded the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. They invaded Finland and Poland. They invaded Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria. More recently, they invaded Moldova and then Georgia. Russia has always been the aggressor. Russia may keep changing its name like a chameleon's skin, from Tsarist Russia to Bolshevik Russia to the Russian Federation, but its aims are the same. Its aims are unchanging. It tries to become an empire. It does this by force. It has no regard for human life, and it has no regard for human dignity. Russia is a terrorist state.
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 No trade with Russia.
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 More sanctions on 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 Russia.
And these imperialist ambitions, they have no boundaries. Russia is now trying to take over in Central Africa, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Democratic Republic of Congo. It is also present in other countries, like in Tanzania. There, Russia acts with stealth. Russia sends in Russian mercenaries, like the Wagner Group, to liberate these countries and to act as so-called peacekeepers. But now Putin admits that Wagner was fully funded by the Kremlin. And what does Russia want from Africa? Africa's riches are in the ground, deep underground. Gold, diamonds, precious metals, and uranium. So what does Russia do? Russia builds mines. But who does the work? Who does the really hard work underground? Is it Russians? Oh no. The Russians send the local ethnic population, they pay them peanuts, they work them to the bone. The Russians treat the local population like slaves. The local population does the hard work, Russia reaps the benefits. But Africa is not enough. Russia supports terrorist regimes in Iran and in Syria. And even this is not enough. Russia supports countries such as Venezuela in South America in order to get a toehold in South America. Russia is now present in Europe, in Africa, in the Middle East, in South America, and in the Caribbean. Russia is an imperialist state.
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 And the playbook remains the same. First, they try by stealth, by subverting, by corrupting, by bribing their local government. And if that fails, they take the country by force, using troops and mercenaries. And the Russian dream, the Ruski Mir, remains the same. Expand, conquer, dominate, and subjugate. Recently in Africa, Russia introduced the so-called African Initiative. That sounds good, doesn't it? The African Initiative. It sounds very benign and charitable. They have started to build schools. That also sounds good. and charitable. But what do they teach in these schools? They do not teach the local ethnic language. They teach the Russian language and they teach about Russian culture. No, they teach Russian because they claim Russian is a respected international language. They destroy the local culture and replace it with Russian culture. They replace the local ethnic language with the Russian language. Russia is an imperialist state.
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 Russia is a terrorist 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 state.
No trade with Russia.
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 And we see a similar situation in Ukraine, in the territories that have been invaded. The ethnic Ukrainian population is forced to register for Russian passports. Because without a Russian passport, you can't get a job. Without a Russian passport, you can't claim a pension. Without a Russian passport, you can't send your children to school. And when your children do go to school in the occupied territories, they teach everything in Russian. There is no Ukrainian language teaching. The Ukrainian language is banned. The Ukrainian culture is banned. Ukrainian history is banned and replaced with a fake version of Russian history. Children are forced to wear Russian uniforms and to sing Russian military songs. This is nothing other than indoctrination. This is nothing other than the genocide of a nation by destroying its language, by destroying its culture, by destroying its history, and by destroying its religion. Stop the genocide in Ukraine.
Stop the genocide in Ukraine.
Stop the war. Stop the genocide in Ukraine.
Stop the war.
Stop the war. Stop the genocide in Ukraine.
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 Let us consider the current situation in Ukraine. 2 or 3 days ago, the Russians launched a missile at a cargo ship carrying grain to Egypt. It's the first time Russians have launched a missile against a Ukrainian civilian ship. When this missile struck, this ship was in Romanian waters. This ship was in NATO waters. And what reply from NATO? Nothing. This month, we have seen some of the largest aerial bombardments in Ukraine. Over 200 missiles and drones were launched against Ukraine on the 1st of September. On the 3rd of September, missiles struck Poltava, killing over 50 people and injuring over 300. On the 4th of September, Lviv in western Ukraine was bombed. A hospital nurse and her 3 children were killed. Air defense for Ukraine.
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 F-16s 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 for Ukraine.
Self-defense is not offense. Arm 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 Ukraine.
Long-range missiles for 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 Ukraine.
We are grateful to Britain and to NATO for giving us weapons. But there must be no restrictions on their use. We need the capability for long-range strikes to destroy the Russian airfields from which their bombers take off. If the bombers can't fly, they can't launch their missiles against Ukraine. Giving us long-range capability is more efficient and cheaper than providing expensive Patriot interceptor missiles. Long-range missiles for Ukraine.
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 Self-defense is not offense. Arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is no offense.
Arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is not offense. Arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is no offense. Arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is not offense. Arm Ukraine.
Self-defense is no offense. Arm Ukraine.
2 days ago, or actually several days ago now, about 5 days ago, Russian drones crossed NATO airspace in Latvia and in Romania. These drones were on their way to targets in western Ukraine. So now we are in a truly bizarre situation where NATO is supplying Ukraine with air defense, but at the same time, NATO is allowing Russian drones and missiles to cross NATO airspace as these harbingers of death fly to attack and destroy Ukrainian cities. How can this be? This cannot be allowed to continue. These missiles and drones which cross NATO airspace are flying to kill Ukrainians and to destroy Ukrainian cities. NATO, what are you doing? NATO, what are you thinking? You send us air defense equipment to protect us, but at the same time you allow Russian missiles and drones to cross NATO airspace to hit us. This is pure madness. There is no logic in this. We understand you don't want to intercept these missiles over NATO territory, as the debris will fall onto NATO land and may kill NATO civilians or cause damage on NATO territory. However, Ukraine has already given permission for you to shoot down these missiles and drones when they are over Ukrainian territory. NATO, this is not escalation, but simply an extension of your air defense strategy for Ukraine. NATO, you can't just stand back and watch Russian missiles fly over your territory. This makes NATO look weak and indecisive. NATO, wake up! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, wake up! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, wake up! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO,
Wake up! Shoot down Russian missiles!
NATO, don't look weak! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, don't look weak! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, don't look weak! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, show courage! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, show courage! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be strong! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be strong! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be bold! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be bold! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be brave! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be brave! Shoot down Russian missiles! NATO, be brave! Shoot down Russian missiles! Together, we will win! Together, we will win!
Together.
Together, we will win!
Together!
We will win.
Together, we will win!
Together! We will win!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам.
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам.
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам.
Glory to Ukraine!
Glory to you!
Glory to Ukraine! Glory to Ukraine! Нашим захисникам тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам нашим тричі!
Смерть, смерть, смерть. Ладно, що ми скажеш? Що скажеш? Що? Голодні попалися в нас раді. Коли в нас мали? Дивись. Голодні попалися. Ну так, 2 дня постара. Ваші номери. Поки я озабочен. Подумай, що сказати. Так, я скажу. Какая здесь? Что там? Упал на брезент режиссер.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
І нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Before we continue, this morning on the way to church, I decided to translate to you in English a letter that was written, as far as I can understand, by a parent of a 3-year-old girl, and it is written in a first person, and I would like to read it to you in English. I've turned 3 years old today. I was born just before full-scale invasion. I was born in North Donetsk. I could have been born in any other city in the world. But I was born in this city, where my parents had planted trees in a park with special notes so they can bring me to that park when I grow up. I was born in September of 2021. Doctors had told my parents that I have problems with my heart, so I need to avoid crying or any other stress. But I was surrounded by so much love, I had no reason to cry. So my grandma, who lived in US, had called me happy toddler who never cries. I had everything a child ever needed: warm, comfortable home, loving parents, even a rattling handheld toy with my name on it. What else a 5-month-old girl could need? But one night I woke up from fear, not my own, but my mother's fear. It was a new unknown feeling for me. I don't know why, but my parents took me out of my comfortable bed and put me in a pushchair, and we all stayed in a very dark corridor where my parents sat down on the floor with a bag full of my belongings. My parents had covered all windows and all doors with blankets and mattresses. We lived like this in fear for about a week, hoping this nightmare will soon be over. And we didn't know what to do. Early in the morning, on the first day of my first ever spring, we had finally left our home, but it was not to go for a walk like before. We were going to a train. We were rushing to a train station because there was hope. There was a train to evacuate Ukrainians. We were sitting in a cold bunker, a bomb shelter, for about 9 hours, while the railroad workers were checking that the tracks are still intact. A journey that before took about 4 to 5 hours was so much longer now. I was petrified while I was surrounded by all these strangers, hiding, hoping, and waiting like we did. But most petrifying were the sounds of constant explosions. I'm still petrified of noises and dark. We had managed to get to western border of Ukraine, and very nice people who had hosted us for about a week in their home. I've turned 6 months old in their house. My parents had a dilemma. We were close to Romanian, Hungarian, Slovakian borders. Where do we go from here? To go with a toddler into unknown was petrifying. Our family friend who lived in Germany had kindly invited us over to her home. We lived there for 3 months next to a very beautiful monastery. Throughout our journey, we were always met with nothing but kindness and support. Meanwhile, my city was being bombed, looted, and other children like me got kidnapped. And when my first tooth was cutting through my gums, we were on a plane to US, to my grandparents. I live in US for over 2 years now. Now I have a new home, uncle, auntie, grandparents, one great-grandma, and an older sister who is still in Ukraine. I haven't met her yet. I only saw her on my father's phone screen. While my old city is being destroyed daily, I've traveled halfway around the world. I've changed numerous cities. Today is my 3rd birthday. This child, she made it. 19,500 children got kidnapped, and their future is not as bright as this little girl's. Many children got killed this week, last week, for 3,860 days. More than 1 million of Russians are waking up with the whole purpose to kill as many Ukrainians as possible. Their generals are saying about Ukraine, rebel or Russia, they tell us and you. And this is why every single war rally, we stop for a minute and we honor the lives lost, the lives slaughtered of little girls and boys like this one who died, who didn't make it. For every single soldier who got killed by Russian scumbag terrorists. And now we're gonna have that minute of silence. Thank you so much.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим захисникам тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
And this is why we gather here, because this is personal. My cousin is on the front line since December. Most of my friends have friends or family on the front line, or had friends or family on the front line and are now deceased because they got murdered by Russian scumbag terrorists. And they are generational war criminals. Their parents were killing Georgians, they're killing Moldovans, they were killing people in Afghanistan. Russians have no, for them peace is offensive. They've been raging wars all through their history. I looked at the map, how many countries they have attacked in last 100 years, and it's easier to find a country that they have not attacked. The list is much shorter. And now, as we stand here,
Russian mercenaries are killing civilians in Syria. They are in at least 4 different countries in Africa: Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, Central African Republic, and they are killing civilians daily in Ukraine. So when anyone tells you that Russia is a Ukrainian problem, they are either delusional or they are Russian. Because Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Tribunal for Russian war criminals. Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
No trade with Russia.
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 And while we stand here, one of our friends, just before I took the mic, they said, did you hear that the drone fell in Rezekne in Latvia? And Latvians are deeply concerned. When the drones fall or rockets fall in Poland, they're all deeply concerned. Well, I have a news flash for both Latvians and for Polish and any other nation who suffer from any backlash of the rockets or drones that are targeting Ukraine. Deep concern will not stop this. Only devotional and committed help to protect democracy in Europe, as Ukraine is the largest European country. It does not have to be part of Europe to be a European country. We don't need to be part of NATO to deserve to be free. We are peaceful nation. When anyone tells you, you are the same people, you are brothers and sisters, you are delusional. Because if you want to call us brothers and sisters, let's look at one statistic. How many countries have Ukraine waged war with since USSR broke apart in 1991? The count is 0. Even this war, we are defending ourselves because we got attacked. This, for Russia, this is not even their 10th war. It's double digits already. If you count African conflicts and their illegal activities all across the globe, it will go closer to 20 different conflicts. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a 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 terrorist state.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions with Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia.
And I don't know if you play this game. I encourage you to play this game, to look. It will take you months. It might take you even up to a year to go through every single sanction that is on Russia right now and find your favorite. My favorite sanction on Russia, I nicknamed it a reality check sanction. Nothing, and I mean nothing, that can't be bought in Russia because of the sanctions cannot enter European Union. So if you can't buy an iPhone in Russia, it will be seized when a Russian person is crossing a border from a terrorist state to a peaceful democratic place. If you can't buy BMW, Mercedes, Volvo, you name it, Tesla, does not matter. If the sanctions say this car is illegal to buy in Russia. Russians are met with reality. They are met with consequences of their actions. They don't care when Russians attacked Georgia in 2008. It's nothing to do with us. 140 million of Russians were singing. We are outside their politics. Nothing to do with us. We are outside of politics. Nothing to do with us. But when mobilization in 2022 autumn started, they ran to the same country that they attacked in 2008. Hypocrites, liars, terrorists, scumbag terrorist invaders, they are generational war criminals. This is a historic, undisputed fact. More than a dozen of nations can testify to that today. So Ukraine is not just fighting for its future, it's fighting for peace in Moldova as well. Like Moldovan president, she said this spring on a peace summit, that the peace for Ukraine means peace for Moldova. I repeat the president of Moldova words. If peace for Ukraine means peace for Moldova, that means that Ukrainian soldiers are fighting for Moldova. And when Ukraine wins, Belarus will have a chance for democracy. Even scumbag terrorist invader Russians, they will have democracy, which Ukrainian soldiers spilled blood for. Ukrainians today are dying for democracy. Help Ukraine protect peace.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And I'll give you my biography as a historical lesson of Russian war crime and occupation. I was born in 1985 in a Soviet Czech Republic. My father was a USSR soldier in their army and he was based in Czech Republic. That's why I was born there. Don't worry, my father is petrified of blood. He would be the best soldier for Russian army now, not then. But he was in Czech Republic only because Russians occupied Czech Republic. Then my parents moved to Latvia. The only reason why 40% of Latvian population is Russian speaking, because Russians occupied Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Ukraine, Belarus. They occupy any country who are neighboring with them. In Kazakhstan, because of this war, students cannot afford student accommodation. They can't rent a flat because so many Russians came to hide from mobilization. And I have a picture, I can find it for you if you want. Over there, I think it was autumn of 2022 or autumn last year. A banner and a Russian rally was there. Help us raise, I don't remember, 100 or 200,000 pounds. Help us raise money for those who are running away from war crimes they are committing right now in Ukraine. Help pull Russians hide from their own government. They had this government for 24 years, almost quarter of a century. And when I tell you that Gazprom had filed last year first time losses in a quarter of a century, Putin was not a president last time that happened. That's why it happened. Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 No trade with Russia.
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 And this is why we gather here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours, every Friday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours, and every Sunday like today at 3 p.m. for 2 hours. In between these war rallies, we try to raise as much money as possible. Every single Sunday, our volunteers are standing outside churches to raise any kind of funds to buy gear directly to our friends, family of our friends, friends of our friends. The list goes on and on. Every single Ukrainian on the front line, of which more than 67,000 are women, are putting their life on the line every single day. So there will be peace in Moldova. That my niece and my nephew who live in Ukraine will not have a Russian passport, will not, and none of my future nephews and nieces will have a Russian birth certificate. Because Russians, have a look online, Russians gave new birth certificates to more than 19,500 Ukrainian children that they kidnapped. They are telling them today, right now, while I'm speaking to you, you are not Ukrainian. Ukraine does not exist. You are Russian. What future awaits those children? War in Moldova, killing Africans in Burkina Faso, maybe it will be still Mali, maybe it will be still Syria. Russia is not a Ukrainian problem. Russia is a world problem, because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 And next, I would like to talk to you about film festival in Cannes and in Canada. For those who think propaganda is something you know if that pass is red, there's no propaganda. You know it's propaganda. So if I go to IMDb right now and I put at war, you will get a synopsis. A Russian-Canadian director. A Russian-Canadian director. So a Russian woman who moved to Canada took more than 250,000 US dollars of Canadian taxpayers. Spent more than 6 months on the front line with Russians. And she said there were no war crimes. Russians are political victims. They are blameless. They didn't torture anyone. They didn't do anything. So wait. A person who worked for IT propaganda TV channel moves to Canada, and she says, guys, these stupid Canadians, they will give me money to prove that we are not doing any war crimes. Would you grant me full access to the front line? I will tell them that I lied to Russians, that I'm a wife of one of the soldiers. Have any of you been to an army? Imagine you are at war and a woman comes with a professional film crew and she says, I am wife of Sergei. Can I stay with you for 7 months? Of course it was granted. The permission to make this film was granted by Russian government, and Canada paid for it. This is how Russians work. Have a look across Europe and around the world. Russian House, Ruski Dom project, biggest propaganda machine ever. We keep hearing in Denmark, KGB agent or FSB agent got caught in Russian House. More spies got reported working in Russian House. Russians are using any opportunity to tell you that they were forced to kill civilians in Ukraine. Just for one reason. Because terrorists do what terrorists always do. Kill, loot, destroy, rape, repeat. Kill, loot, destroy, repeat. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
state. Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
And this is why we gather here. And I sent clips from this war rally to my cousin Sergey, and he said, thank you for remembering us. Few months ago we had some Georgians, we were standing over there, they stood in the corner just by our sound system, very serious faces. I thought it's gonna be escalation the moment we finish, but when we finish, I come over to them and they said, thank you. I said, for what? He said, thank you for mentioning Georgia and our war in 2008. I said, I know, because for Russia, Ukraine is just another country. It will be Moldova if Ukraine will fall. After Moldova, who knows? Baltic states, you know, anything on the menu if NATO and the world is toothless and is in doubt. Or my favorite, in air quotes, favorite, we are deeply concerned. We are deeply concerned. Drones are falling. Suicide drones are falling on our territory. We're deeply concerned. This is why we use any opportunity to raise funds or we buy things from our own wallet. And this is why we gather here, and this is why it's so important that as many of us come and we hold our flag above our head. Ukraine exists and is fighting for its existence for 3,860 days. Russian propagandists will tell you the war started 900 years ago. Some Russians will tell you it started on the 6th of August of 2024. Well, it started on the 20th of February of 2014. And we hope it will finish as soon as possible. For that we gather here, for that we gather funds, and we do anything we can to survive. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад
І
усе!
нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава!
Слава! Слава!
We're gonna have some beautiful Ukrainian music and we're gonna continue. Thank you for your support.
Huh? What's up?
Right, how are we actually going to make people
15 minutes more. 15 minutes.
You need message get across from narrative.
Yeah. You need to sit here and listen, yeah?
Well, I need to go.
Героям слава! Понад усе! Понад усе! Понад усе! Слава! Слава! Слава!
So since I started volunteering and helping since the full-blown invasion, I started late because first 6 months I did nothing but just cry and pray because when Russian army in spring of 2022 were outside Kiev, all I did is just keep calling my different friends and say, please run for your life anywhere you want. If you come to UK, you can stay with me. If you go to any country in Europe, I have friends in different countries. You can stay in any country that I have friends, because my friends are your friends. And I said, we are on the other side of Kiev, we can't move. If we move, we die. So this was our 2022. Our power grid now is between 20 and 30% capacity out of 100. I don't know why, but they rank it from the number, the highest number is 12. So right now it's on number 3. Russians have successfully destroyed more than 9 gigawatts of power production in Ukraine. We need 18 for winter time. They are trying to destroy all the power stations, so when the frost comes, lots of people who can't afford generators will die. They did it to us with food in 1932 during Holodomor. They killed estimated more than 4 million of us. 90 years later, nothing,
absolutely nothing had changed with Russian ways of doing things. Killing civilians for them is a normal thing. Exhibit 1,999,099. When Malaysian plane was downed by Russians in 2014, almost 300 civilians. All across the world, I don't think there was even any Ukrainians on that plane. Just saying. There were international people. I think most of the people on that plane were from Holland, as far as I can remember. At least 2 people got convicted for that crime. Girkin and some other scumbag terrorists. None of them went to prison, none of them got prosecuted. Girkin was only arrested, I think it was like 6 months ago or last year. He was only arrested because he started to criticize Putin. So in Russia, killing 300 civilians from all across the world is not a crime. So killing Ukrainian is not only not a crime, it is a hero thing to do for Russians. Since 24th of February of 2022 until autumn last year, any criminal in Russia can get a full presidential pardon if he kills Ukrainians for at least 6 months. Now they changed the deal. It's a roll-on contract for a year until the war is over. Well, let me tell you the maths, because maths never lie. So if 2023 was such a success for Russia, they took around 500 square kilometers of Ukraine. So if 2023 was a success, it would take Russia more than 1,000 years to take over Ukraine. So that contract for thousands of criminals is a 1,000-year contract. This is when it will finish. We were fighting them 100 years ago. They called us Nazis, yet I saw in Stepan Bandera, I saw the list of Ukrainian nationalists that Nazis have executed. So why would Nazis execute Ukrainian nationalists if they are on the same side? Wait, but I wonder who was on the Nazi side from 1939, 1st of September, until 1941. What nation in the world have hosted a parade for Nazi generals? Well, USSR did. They are trying to destroy all evidence of that, but there is still a video footage of Russians saying to the Nazis, look how we jump like monkeys, for you we will dress up, and that parade existed. They invited, I don't know if it was late in 1939 or 1940, but Russians have hosted a parade, military parade for the Nazis, and they are calling Ukrainians Nazis. They are calling Latvian Nazis, Lithuanians are Nazis as well, Estonians are Nazis as well. So everyone who opposes Russia is a Nazi. But wait a second, Wagner, who is fully sponsored by the Russian government, at least $3 billion annually, is called Wagner because one of the founders really liked Wagner as a composer, and he said, if Hitler liked him, I like him. He had Nazi tattoos all over his body, and he chose the name Wagner. I think it was Utkin who had those tattoos. You can have a look. Put Wagner, Utkin tattoos, and you will see a person who is calling us Nazis. Being a nationalist and being a Nazi is two different things. But if you have 140 million ignorant people who are outside politics, they might be outside grammar as well. We are fighting for nothing but peace and freedom for Ukraine. The only reason why we had 2 prisoner exchanges on Friday and Saturday never happened before since the full-blown invasion. Because we attacked Kursk. because they needed their regular, they were not contract army, the regular soldiers, they need them back. Because if there's those thousands of mothers come to Moscow, you can't shoot 1,000 mothers, you can't shoot 1,000 wives. That's why they're so desperate. They will never, if I am wrong, please correct me, but to my knowledge, there were never two prisoners of war exchanges in 48 hours since 24th of February of 2022. If I am wrong, please correct me, but to my knowledge, this is unprecedented. We ask them for prison exchange, prisoners of war exchange every single day. Because for us, every single soldier, especially Azov-style defenders who are tortured daily against all Geneva Conventions, for us, they are heroes. For Russians, their soldiers are disposable. My cousin and my friends are saying me from the front line. They don't care about the wounded. They just walk on top of them. So if Russians are walking on top of their own, what they are doing to Ukrainians? And this is why we gather here. Because for us, this is existential for a war. Because for us, this is our first war. The nickname of Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. What nickname would you give to Russia if you know that today they're killing at least in 4 different countries Africans, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, Central African Republic. They're killing civilian Syrians from 2011. They're killing Ukrainians from 2014. For Russia, peace is offensive. For Ukraine, peace is all we want. Peace and freedom for Ukraine.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
No trade with Russia.
And you will hear an official apology. I still have a video recording from, I think, last summer or last spring of a Canadian MP. She was here on official meeting. We were standing over there. She gave a long speech. We will be with you until you win. We will help you as much as we can. But if, I don't know how to do air quotes in the middle of 2 words. Russian Canadians, it should be an oxymoron. Russian Canadians can fool Canadian government into giving them more than 250,000 US dollars, I think it was 340 Canadian dollars, to make a propaganda film that Russians at war they are victims, they are all victims. I never met a victim who is a rapist, a looter and a criminal. More than 50,000 of Wagner mercenaries crossed Ukrainian-Russian border in 2022. Less than 5,000 crawled back to Russia, wounded or shell-shocked. Half of their tanks gone. 65% of Black Sea Russian Navy is gone. Remaining 35 to 40%, I don't know why they still call it Black Sea Navy, but it's not in the Black Sea. It's not in the Black Sea, so I don't think it should be called Black Sea Russian Navy. They should rename it ex-Black Sea Russian Navy. How about that? 65% is at the bottom of the Black Sea. And I am not talking about submarines. This is what Ukrainians did. And while we are doing that, with drones or anything that we can throw at the scumbags, America was hesitant for too long. Oh, we don't know, we don't want to escalate. And Churchill knows America better than anyone else. Churchill said, America will do the right thing after they exceed all other options. Have a look what year America joined World War II. What year they joined World War II? French, Polish, Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, half of the Europe dying and bleeding. Now we will wait. We don't want to escalate. We don't want to escalate. This is why we ask for an opportunity for us to strike back. So instead of breaking the arrow that is flying towards us, we break the hands of the archer. Air defense for Ukrainian civilians.
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 Let Ukraine strike back.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 Help Ukraine protect peace.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
Help Ukraine protect peace.
And before we have our beautiful national anthem, I'm going to just remind you that we are gathering here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours, every Friday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours, and every Sunday at 3 p.m. for 2 hours. And we've been doing so on different schedule from 2014. Many of us who gather here today, they thought it would finish. I was one of them. We thought this conflict would finish with them annexing Crimea. I was too ignorant and I put my hand up. I was too naive and ignorant. Please do not believe Russian lies. Please ignore their propaganda. They are nothing. Russians are nothing but scumbag terrorist invaders. They are generational war criminals. This is an undisputed historical fact. And more than a dozen of nations can testify today to that today. From 1990 until today. Ask Moldovans, ask Georgians, ask Syrians, ask Ukrainians, ask people from Burkina Faso, ask people from Niger, ask people from Central African Republic. The list goes on and it will expand if you let them. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 And before we have our beautiful national anthem and we conclude this peaceful war rally, I would like to remind you, especially those whose Ukrainian is not their first language, just translate Ukrainian anthem to your language and you will understand our struggle. Even our national anthem is about our struggle and our fight against Russians. Because we've been fighting with them for centuries, for generations, and we will keep fighting until we are alive. And until we are alive, we will fight for our freedom and peace. Nothing else. This is the only two conditions we want. Freedom and peace. This is the only things we bring to negotiation table. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Slava нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
And we're going to conclude with our beautiful national anthem. Thank you so much.
Ще не вмерла Україна, ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим захисникам тричі.
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Дякую за вашу підтримку.
See you soon.
Вітаю. Спілкувалися з Залужним? Трошки. Ясно.
За одним столом.
Та я бачив. Він колись прийде сюди чи ні?
А мене запитання. Я запитаю. Він, в принципі, був відкритий до спілкування, але мені здається, що його трошки, як кажуть, мені здається, що він такий людина відкрита до спілкування, особливо з українською аудиторією, яка йому близька.
Чекаємо тут.
Ну так, да, але поки що специфіка посольства, вона трошки інша. Не знаю. Подивимося.
Дякую. До
Добре,
побачення.
радий був.